Hello, hello, and welcome back to another marvelous episode of Mind the Force, nerdy podcast about Star Wars and mental health. You know this, you know the spiel, you know this stuff. I am Kristine Smith, joined by my lovely Jedi Master co-host James Abbate. We're here back in the cockpit to do it again as I wear my delightful Han Solo-esque bomber jacket inside because it's a little cold in New York.
It's looking great. I'm very Sith geared today.
Right. Well, you're in Vegas. It's always hot there.
Well, got to stay cool with all this AC, you know.
Right? All that artificial circulated air, like in the casinos, just to keep you cracked out and spiced up.
The city is one big Canto bite, that's for sure. Yeah.
I'm as always excited because I don't know any other adjectives for today's episode because it's Mother's Day, and we are going to talk about the mother, the top mother, the mother without which there would be there would be Star Wars in a greater sense, but there would be no Skywalker saga because she was the first Skywalker, numero uno. I mean, I guess that was her father's name, but we don't know nothing about that guy except he went and got himself enslaved, and we'll talk about that later. None other than Shmi Skywalker. Woo.
Long overdue.
long overdue for a little bit of credit to Shmi. Excited to get into what little we know about her life. We don't know a ton, but of course we're gonna bring you guys all the lore and talk about who she was as a mom and as a woman and kind of what that looked like in the circumstances that she was dealt. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the greater scheme of things, in the greater force of it all. But she still played her role with grace and power and insight, and we're going to get into it.
And a lot of dignity. Plus, not many women in the galaxy can say, I raised Darth Vader, you know. She's like, that's my boy. I'm so proud of him.
oh, Sonny boy. What a scamp. Well, he's a naughty little scamp sometimes, but
he's just being Annie. I'm so proud.
Oh, Annie. Annie, are you okay? That's the real question. Annie, are you okay? But as always, before we get into the big business, we got some little business. To stay up to date on everything Mind the Force, please check us out in all the places. There's mindtheforce.com. You're going to find us on Facebook and Instagram. And now we are also on Blue Sky and Substack, where we hit you guys with some bonus content, our additional big old Star Wars thoughts. So if you like this episode and you like all the other episodes, which I already know that you do, head over to Substack and you can get additional thoughts that don't make it into the podcast. Very exciting. For all the latest episodes, please follow, subscribe, share, all of that on your favorite podcast streaming platform. You know, the Spotifys, the Apple Podcasts. If you want to see our shining faces, we're on YouTube, Pocket Casts, Castbox, all the places. Hit the link tree and you'll find the buttons to do all of the stuff. And, of course, shoot us 5-star ratings and email us with your big Star Wars thoughts, feels, questions, and smoke at mindtheforcepodcast@gmail.com.
And Mind the Force podcast is a retrospective on Star Wars characters across all Star Wars content. All films, TV shows, novels, comic books, and video games are up for discussion. So if you don't want some aspect of currently released Star Wars content to be spoiled, go away, come back later, and then re-engage, because we don't want to be the ones that actually destroy the series for you by telling you that Vader is Luke's father. So hopefully you ran away before I said that.
What? God, I'm leaving. Like,
Well, I remember her Kristine's brother Joey kind of watched the series years later, but he's like, I already know the big stuff, so don't worry, you can't spoil this. But I was like,
right?
just to be safe, I'm not stepping on any landmines here.
I that is like a mission of mine is to get Joey to like start in the Star Wars universe. He's like, there's so much, it's so daunting. And I'm
We,
like, but it's so good. Like I
once
promise.
if he ever takes a day off work, we'll sit him down and make him watch
Uh,
chronologically.
that's another question. Entirely. He never takes a day off work. Um, but this isn't about my brother. We're here for the
For the
moms.
mothers, yeah. Woo.
We're here for the mothers. I'm a mother. God damn it. But it is my first Mother's Day, and there better be some spoiling lined up for my husband. I swear.
Watching this prince.
I right. He. You know what? This is how we'll know if he is watching the podcast that we're talking to him directly.
She likes chocolates.
Um. Yeah, no, very, very exciting for first Mother's Day. Baby is about 9.5 months now, and dude, it all happens so fast. Good God, it happens fast. She like talks now and has like teeth and is gonna be walking soon.
These are the
Terrifying,
formative years. Yeah, mine
right?
is like
You
a sponge.
you think the dark side is the most feared power in the galaxy? No, it's your child becoming like a person. Um,
And that ties in. That's one of Shmi's greatest worries too. Am I raising this kid right on this planet of sand in slavery? What is the best and brightest future I can have for him on this planet with two suns? You know.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's I'm looking forward to diving into Shmi because I mean she really just gets kind of reduced to like, oh, Anakin's mom. Like, oh, that's Anakin's mom that he left when he went to become a Jedi, and like she's really framed as like a huge trigger point for him. Like as like people who examine Anakin examine like his traumas and like obviously the things that led to his fall to the dark side. Um it's so easy just kind of like regale Shmi to like this trigger point for Anakin, and there really isn't a lot of examination about who she was as a person and kind of a look at her life and the choices that she had to make and how she really made the best of a lot of really shitty situations. And so she was a woman and a mother and really like a quiet but a very powerful figure. Like did so much with so little.
Yeah, she honestly, she's I think originally crafted by Lucas as a plot device. Her and Padme, the dead mother, the dead wife. It's very Aura style, like Agamemnon or Oedipus, even. You know, if you go back to the ancient kind of Greek plays, the women are often foils or plot devices to advance the tragedy of the male character, which is done here. However, Star Wars, in my mind, and I think in many's mind, does deal with its female characters in an interesting way where, yes, they may be a plot device to some degree, but they're very layered. They have a lot of human qualities that we recognize. Like, you know, I saw my own mom in Shmi. I'm sure many did as a kid. Just see that self sacrifice, that selfless love, do anything for your child, admonish them when dangers nearby. Like, I don't want him pod racing, you know, but at the same time, encouraging his gifts and be like, well, yeah, he was meant to help you. So she is a foundational character in the saga. There's a lot of emotional weight. I thought it paid off in episode 2 when she was dying in his arms. And it's often overlooked how, despite how important she is, like how critical she is, without her, without Palpatine and Sidious putting that Force baby in her womb, giving birth to Anakin, without her mentoring Anakin and teaching him the good. He could have been raised a ruffian, but he was raised as a really nice boy. It was his fear and his separation from that light, like a plant taken away from the sun, that created that evil in him, that fear, that worry, that suffering. You know, fear is the path to the dark side. I think that she allowed his redemption, really, in a way. Yes, it was the son who redeemed him, Luke, but it was also the mother who instilled that goodness in him to begin with. So he wouldn't have had anything to return to redeem to, if it weren't for her. And that's kind of like a mother's love in Harry Potter. You know, she protected Harry with that from the killing curse. Avada Kedavra, I always got to say it. But in a way, Palpatine tried to Avada Kedavra the galaxy and take over with his little Force baby. but Shmi, and her mother's love was the most powerful force in the universe, and that enveloped him through life. Even 45 years later, when he's dying, he's like, "You are right, Luke." His mother's love came back in a way. Padme's love, family returned, and that's nothing is nothing replaces that. In a way, that's her beating Palpatine, beating the dad, the runaway dad who took Anakin from her. Really, that's her beating him in the end and getting the final word. In my mind, that's how I look at her importance in the saga. A mother's love.
That is very poetic. That was a beautiful launch, James.
Thanks. Wasn't AI, homie.
Claps for you. To give just a little, I guess, very little background. Just as far as like dates and lore, there's not a ton for Shmi, but just to give you guys just the little like Cliff Notes version of where we are in the timeline and kind of like how we progress through her life. So birth date and birth planet are unknown. Don't know where Shmi Skywalker came from. But
probably Tats.
Probably. But by 66 BBY, her and her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Skywalker, whoever they were captured and enslaved by pirates. And then at some point, I don't know if it's with her parents or without her parents, that's also not clear. At some point, they were sold to Gardula the Hutt, and Shmi worked as a house slave. At some point, of course, she becomes immaculately concepted with Anakin through Plagueis and Sidious's manipulation of the midichlorians. That's a fun little alliteration. And Anakin is born in 41 BBY. And then around 38 BBY is when Gardula the Hutt loses Anakin and Shmi in a bet with Watto the Todarian junk collector. And of course they work for Watto, and Watto makes Anakin fix things and pod race, and essentially like uses like this clever little boy and to essentially like keep Shmi in line, as well as win him money.
Well, don't forget they got bombs in them too as slaves. Their bombs are planted, so if they try to escape, they explode at the slave master's detonation. Mm-hmm.
That part.
Yeah.
So then Anakin, then in 32 BBY is when Anakin like leaves, like to go become a Jedi.
Episode 1.
Right. Right now we're in the canon saga. Then in 27 BBY is when our main guy Clegg Lars.
Plague without the leg.
Yes. Slides on into her in her theoretical DMs, as the young things say these days.
Slides into her moisture farm, yeah, or brings her to him.
God, James. Ew.
Sorry.
That's a visual. God, this could be a children's program if I didn't say fuck so much, but that's not what we do. So Lars wins her in a bet against Watto, and obviously falls in love with her, frees her, and that's in 27 BBY. And then unfortunately, 5 years later in 22 BBY is when she gets kidnapped by those Tusken Raiders and dies of her injuries in her poor, traumatized son's arms.
Or, really, in Vader's arms for the first time. I think that's when Vader came out. After she died, that's when he first surfaced, She gave birth, her death gave birth to a second Anakin.
Ooh, that's a footnote for the Vader series. Put a pin in that. Definitely, we'll circle back to that one day.
All she wanted to do was collect mushrooms for her I guess Bantha Marsala for Clegg. She's collecting mushrooms off the evaporators, and then here these Tuskens come around. I guess that's his second wife that got taken away, right? Because it's so dangerous there.
Right. We are under the assumption that the first Mrs. Lars was also kidnapped by Tusken Raiders. It's a safe assumption.
Which I love. In episode 4, they even Luke is like, I don't want to go out at night, chasing that stupid droid R2 who ran away. He's like, that's when the Tusken Raiders, the Sand People, come out. And I like that in episode 1, and 2 really, they revisit that and say, yeah, that actually set everything in motion. Your grandmother died this way, and that's what created Vader. Those Tusken Raiders at night, I love that. It's like poetry.
Really, that's the moral of Star Wars is those goddamn Tusken Raiders, just kidnapping people, ruining everything. But back to Shmi before she was kidnapped by Tusken Raiders. So really her character as a whole, like, is, like you said, like, presented, like, as obviously like a plot point, but there's just a warmth to Shmi that I think is really undeniable. Like you said, like, she made you, like, think of your mom. She made you think of, like, that almost, like, quintessential role of, like, mother's love. Like it's very grounding for Anakin and, like, who he is, and I think that's the kind of home and sense of normalcy that she's trying to provide. I mean, in this terrible situation, like, let's never forget that, like, Shmi and Anakin are slaves. Like you mentioned, with, like, little bombs in their necks. Like, there's nothing great about the environment. And being raised on Tatooine, which is essentially like a gangster planet, like, there's nothing that says, "Ooh, let's raise a child in this situation." But she makes the most of it. Like, she obviously has no formal education, being that she herself was enslaved from a young age. But Shmi's not stupid. Like, she's very smart. Like, she has a lot of technical skills that she passes on to Anakin. And she has what I think everyone would agree is a very quiet dignity about herself. Like, certainly she's not born as some, like, high lady like Padma, or like Padme, the way that Leia's raised, like, as a princess. But there's definitely a dignity that she carries about her throughout the 8 to 9 minutes of screen time that she gets across episodes 1 and 2. Like, there's a very womanly, motherly softness to her, but in no way can you consider Shmi to be a weak character, considering her circumstances.
No, it's a long, quiet resolve, and you see that in moms a lot too. At least I did with my mom, and I see it in others as well. That strength is enduring, and it's a quiet, simmering power. It's not forceful and masculine, in many cases, except when you need to be the mama bear, sort of like, get away from my pack. But otherwise, like, I've seen my mom stand up for me. I've seen mothers do this with others. There's a territorial kind of protection, and you see that in, again, Harry Potter, Star Wars. That mother's love, that riff is just constant, or motif is constantly revisited. And in her, she's the perfect mother, in a sense, in a slave situation, in a sandy, terrible, backworld, crime-ridden, outland planet. And yet, even still, she blossoms. Even still, there's moisture taken from the air, from a sandy planet. Barrenness becomes, what is it? Fecundity becomes fruitful, and that's this whole story. Something from nothing, in a way, she's like, I can't explain it. How did Anakin come here? Even more so, she finds him more precious because there's no father, because he's just inexplicable. And really, the chosen one, immaculate birth, Jesus Christ, all that stuff, goes back to, ancient times. That whole, burden on her is subconscious. She doesn't even quite understand it on a conscious level, but subconsciously, she plays into that strength. She's like, I don't know why, but I'm called up to this. Maybe this is my destiny. My fate is here. Your fate's a Jedi Knight, Anakin. I belong here, Maybe I won't have the most pretty, luxurious life. But she dealt with it in quiet resolve, bore her cross, bore her suffering, sort of thing. And in a way, I think inspired Anakin, because he saw what was right. He learned right and wrong from her. And I'd like to think that's what, between, again, Padme, Luke, and his mom, the triple threat, helped him throw Palpatine down a reactor shaft at the end, because he remembered that mother's goodness, that love, that durability, that truest force in the universe. And she was just a model to him. She stood up to show him what is right and wrong. And he said that too. He's like, you said the biggest problem in this galaxy is no one helps each other. And maybe he's thinking that when he's seeing Luke being electrocuted, I gotta help him, that sort of thing. I think that really, it's inculcated in you, it's biological in my mind.
Yeah, there's in the few stories that exist about Shmi, like, throughout the lore, not war, Star Wars, get it, is
Star Wars.
really, like, her instilling like those, like ethics and morality into Anakin, that he will carry, like, throughout his life, obviously, until he falls to the dark side, and then just gets kind of put on the back burner. Like, her, like, teaching him, like, how to be a good person, like, how to help people, like, how can you be as helpful as possible to others. It was like a big lesson that she instilled. And I can imagine that's so hard on like essentially like this crime ridden planet where like everyone's just kind of out for each other. Like there's always like grifters and like mercenaries and just like a whole slew of like thievery and tomfoolery passing through. And through all of this, like you need to keep a child grounded and a sense of morality. And I think it's interesting before we get into like obviously like more like one to one like religious tropes with like our own like sense of religion and like Christianity and like all these inspirations that obviously like the Immaculate Mother was pulled from. I guess something you mentioned was interesting that when she did mysteriously become pregnant, somehow she was pregnant, that she kind of rolled with it. So like I guess in a sense she almost had her own sense of faith, which is quite interesting in the galaxy because you only hear about like so many, I guess so many like forms of religion throughout the galaxy. Like I
Right,
guess
very
in Star
few.
Wars, I guess in Star Wars like things really focus on the Force, and you like
There's
hear
force
about
and
like
not
a
force.
right, you hear like a small handful of cultures that are
Well,
like Force in tune, but like for the average Joe on the street, like there isn't any kind of like religious or faith
it's
belief.
material, right?
Yeah, like
Dialectic
there's
materialism.
right when you're a slave, there's not a lot of room for God,
But
or the galaxy concept of God. But she had some sort of faith, so maybe she was like, maybe this is the Force at work. Maybe this is some sort of greater entity at work. I'm gonna roll with it.
I think
That's what
that
she
I think
did.
that I think that clicked when actual Jedi showed up at her house. She's like, "Wow, Force wielders are actually here." No one's favorite character is ever Shmi Skywalker. No one ever says that. But when you look, it's like, or really any of the women except Leia, but or Rey. But when you look at it to it, she was so critical in a way. The whole prophecy, the chosen one. Again, I guess the wise men, the three wise men in this situation were Qui Gon, Padme, and Jar Jar, in a weird way. Just sticking his tongue out, grabbing her fruit. But which is interesting, actually. Fruit of the womb too. I never really thought of that. Anyway, but Qui Gon's interactions with her and conversations, she's learning about midichlorians, learning the Immaculate Conception, saying this could be the chosen one as he's interviewing her. So that's critical to the whole prophecy. And in a way, the Force did bring everyone together, right? There was a larger narrative arc. It wasn't just, I guess, relative truths, but capital T, the truth. Like, yes, the dark side of the Force impregnated her. The light side of the Force found her child to defeat that dark side that they ironically created within her. So there is kind of a feedback loop, a one to one there. Palpatine and Plagueis create said child in the womb to subjugate the universe, and Qui Gon and Obi-Wan discover this child and use it to free the universe. So there's a irony there, really, but that's the Force in work, and I think there is a religious element with her being the Mother Mary, saying, I don't really get all this, is kind of new to me, but hey, again, this baby came out of nowhere. I'm a virgin potentially.
Right, that
I,
would
I'm
work.
just right. I'm just gonna roll with this, and it's actually really interesting because she kind of just saw, I think, hope in Anakin. She's like, my life is what it is, but in him, the sky's the limit. He's a great pilot. He can be a Jedi. He's attuned. He sees things before they happen. She understood his premonition ability. She's like, there's something about him, and he has a better future there. I'm selfless. I love him so much. I want the best for him. I want him to go to Coruscant. I want him to have this. I don't want him to be blown up as a slave here.
Yeah, and there is actually a very interesting point in one story that came later on, in the I believe it was in the Aftermath novel, that after Anakin left, obviously it was just Shmi and C-3PO there, left on Tatooine, and Shmi was confiding, like obviously she was very like strong and stoic for when Anakin left with the Jedi, but she was able to confide in C-3PO, who was like sad that Anakin left, like, oh, when is Master Annie coming back? And she's like, oh, I hope he doesn't. Like, I hope he never comes back here. I hope he goes and has a better life. That's all I can hope for him. And she admits to 3PO that she also had a dream, like also always had a dream that Anakin would be a Jedi. And I can imagine that there is, being that it was like such a mysterious pregnancy and like such a mysterious birth, that maybe she always knew kind of the back of her mind, like there's something bigger going on here. Like I need to, almost like in a very like prophetic kind of way, like I need to kind of roll with this. Like I need to like play my role in this. I need to raise this boy to be a good person because there's some sort of power at play here. And that's very insightful for someone in her position.
It is because you know what it is. The premonition and the foresight ability. Like she had a quiet faith, but didn't really know what it was. But she knew she was part of a larger story. It's almost like, geez, this guy named George Lucas is directing these films. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. But she sensed that overall arc, which Palpatine failed to do because he thought power is everything. I'm the Sith, taken over forever. That's it. How short his reign was, like 23 years, really. And in a way, it's like she had the power of foresight because she does believe. I think she is faithful. She said he was born to help you. He was meant to help you. Meant means there is a meaning that precedes you. It's outside of her, God, force, whatever you want to call it. This pre-existed her because she can't just say, like the existential life. Life is what you make it. Meaning is what you give it. No, no, no. This meaning preceded me, preceded him. We're following. We're coloring in the lines here. Anakin was born to help you in this moment right now to become a Jedi to help the galaxy. There's a story here. We're part of a story. We don't write the story. We're just actors in it, and that's kind of very prescient and meta in a way. And I always kind of like that, even as an 8-year-old watching this in the films. It and it's beyond religion too. It goes into many stories of antiquity. Really, Lucas does lift a lot from Greek plays and like Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers, so it's an interesting mix. But for sure, she did see the overall arc of the galaxy. I think she couldn't quite put it together, and that's kind of what mothers do. They don't get all the little pieces, but they see the big story. They see the big picture. You see mothers generally, they're very like, this isn't a good idea for our family, tonight, or not doing this. We did McDonald's, for instance. Don't eat so much today because the big picture, you'll get health issues, stuff like that. It's like, I know what's good for you. You indulge now. You don't hear the way that mothers just generally act towards their children. They see their lives in their entirety. Like, how do I ensure my child is safe and happy from now till they're like 94? And that's what was the gears in Shmi's mind for Anakin.
Right. All right. And she did that without, I guess, keeping him too close to the breast. Like she taught him to be very street smart. She taught him to be very like technical smart, good with his hands, like use his brain, have good judgment. And then when it was time to let him go, she did that. She wasn't like, no, you can't take my son away. He's all that I have in this situation. She's like, no, like this is the opportunity. Like this is the
This is it.
opportunity to give you the better life that I can't give you here. Like you need to go with these Jedi. Like who knows? Essentially, like Anakin was the reason I think why like Watto treated them so well. And I mean, in some ways, I'm sure like you could say like, oh, Anakin was almost like a protector of his mom, being like, oh, he's a young kid, but he's really smart. He's useful. Like not that I don't think Shmi isn't useful and intelligent, but like
She wasn't exceptional.
Anakin. Yeah, she wasn't exceptional in the way Anakin was. She was not an exceptional slave. But do you want to be an exceptional slave? She had that foresight to know that like even though this hurts and I love my son, like he's my entire world, like what's best for him is to let him go. And that's just that ultimate moment, like you mentioned, like with the Harry Potter comp, just that ultimate moment of selfless love. That selfless
Lay down the
motherly
life
love.
for him, really. Right? She's like, you don't belong to me. I'm not a smothering mother. But Watto could not lose two slaves. He was material. He's like, I gotta keep my one slave. Qui-Gon tried to free her, but he's like, no. So Watto gave Qui-Gon the parts, the engine for the Nubian ship, and the papers for Anakin's release, and the bomb. He takes it out in one of the Legends Episode 1
Oh,
comics. He takes out the bomb. So I guess there's some surgery going on with the droid,
right.
just sucks it out,
Lot
puts
happened.
it, ding! It's like a bullet,
um,
yeah. But yeah, no, so she is so selfless and sees what's better for him, for the galaxy. Watto can only think about the immediate, what's, you know,
yeah, well,
money,
he's not meant. He's not
power.
meant to be a good guy.
Right, but
No
I love
redemption.
that.
No redemption arc for Watto.
A little bit. He's like, what do you, look at you, my slave, you're all grown up. What do you know, Annie?
It's
It's like,
not a
where's my
redemption
mother?
arc. Um,
But you see how amazed Watto is? He's like, can you believe that idiot slave master freed his slave and married her? I would never do something. I had to give you up because I didn't want to, by threat, by force. But it's crazy,
right.
yeah. She was so, yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, no, that's definitely not. Eventually, was not a bad gig for her. That Clegg Lars did come along and see that lovely Skywalker smile. Because Shmi was a looker. She wasn't bad looking. Just because she didn't have a baby daddy didn't mean that she couldn't still pull him. And she pulled her Mr. Lars and got
That's the
herself free from
force.
slavery.
That's the force acting again, really. That's it, sort of pushing events along. Had she not married him, she probably wouldn't have died in Anakin's arms. He wouldn't have been Vader. He wouldn't have been able to be close enough to throw the Sith down a reactor shaft. It all boils down
Yeah.
to that reactor shaft. Like what led me to this moment? And that's actually in Robot Chicken where he's falling. He's like, how did I get here?
Right. Well, it's
Falling.
also a good musical theater comp for "Merrily We Roll Along."
Yep.
How did you
I
get to
actually
be
know
here?
that.
What is
Yeah.
the
How
moment?
did
A good Sondheim pun. Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, she probably would have never been kidnapped by Tusken Raiders doing tech work for Watto
there
in
would be
town.
there would be no haven or future for Luke because had she not bridged the Lars and the Skywalker family, she wouldn't have been Owen's stepmother. So in a way, she was mother to him longer for 5 years actually, not longer. Sorry, than Anakin was. But Anakin had her for 9, and Owen and Beru, I guess, had her for 5. So I don't know their relationship if they got along, but obviously they knew her. You know, it was Owen's father's love, and then when Owen became the man of the household, and Obi-Wan, I guess Clegg died by that point because Obi-Wan brought the baby only to Owen and Beru, who either they moved out or Clegg died. It looked like a different moisture farm. But my point is, that's where Luke was under the protection of, under Obi-Wan's penumbra, but in the immediate, care and custodianship of Owen Lars. And did he continue Shmi's legacy there with Luke? I like to think that the generations passed down, and maybe Luke learned some things secondhand, through filtration from Owen, from Shmi. I just think that her legacy there, bridging that, allowing, Luke to live on Tatooine. Had she not married Lars, who would Obi-Wan brought the baby Luke to?
Yeah, no, it's clearly, even that act is like, I mean, even though we'll probably never see that relationship play out in real time between Shmi and Owen as like stepmom and stepson, it's probably good if Owen was just like, oh, this is like essentially Shmi's grandson. Like, yeah, of course, he's family. We'll take him in.
Right, maybe they did have a really good relationship because it's like, why else would he take it to honor her? And that's why I think he hated Anakin so much. He's like, he betrayed his mother, everything she stood for. I'm the real
Yeah,
son. Look,
like
I'm
left.
raising this baby. Why am I raising it, not Anakin? Yeah,
Ooh, right. I'm Shmi's son. You're not Shmi's son.
I'm a
Ooh, that
Skywalker. Right. That's why maybe Luke kept his name Luke Scott. Why didn't he become Luke Lars? That would be way easier to hide the chosen
right,
one's baby.
right,
So
Ter. Right. That's a question for another time. Why did they leave his name
Ben
Skywalker?
Kenobi and Luke Skywalker. The Empire's like, nah, not them, not them.
On the planet where I was born. Interesting.
But there's so much
That's
sand. I'm not going there. I'm not stepping foot.
right. You know what? Sometimes you gotta hide in plain sight.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Overall, the legacy that Shmi left behind is, I mean, it's one of kindness, it's one of empathy, it's one of understanding, it's one of just having the foresight to stand up for what's right and to stay on the side of goodness. And I think that foundation that she instilled in Anakin, like you said, was part of the foundation that pulled him back in his redemption arc at the end. So it's interesting that's like one of the smallest roles had the really like the biggest impact. Because yeah, there would be no Anakin, and there would be no Luke, and there would be no
Vader, really.
Yeah, or there
She's
would
the
be no
crucible
Vader.
for everything. For the she was uncorrupted, so she was part of the reason for his turn. Her and Padme, the fear, the anger, the hate, the suffering. She she was instrumental to his corruption and his redemption. So it was twofold, and that's kind of a mother's play in anything. But if I had to sum her up, her whole contribution to the series would be a sorrowful selflessness. It just shows you the power of a mother's love and what it can really do compared to tyrants who rule entire galaxies. Sometimes that smallest family unit can be more explosive than a supernova.
Right. And of course, we won't get too much into her death because you all know how she died,
Yeah,
and
very
that's
sad.
more in line with Anakin and Vader's trauma anyway. And we're going to talk about Shmi, not
Her
Anakin,
perspective, but she was so
right?
happy to see. I think if
She
you're
was
her,
really happy to see
you're
him.
you're dying. But what are the odds? That's the force bringing them together. She's like, I got 4 minutes to save the world. She got 4 minutes left, about to die, and what do you know? Her boy, all grown up, all Jedi like, shows up. She's like, this is the best way I could have died right now. I was going anyway, but I'm so happy to see you.
Yeah,
She's like, let me just look up on your eye, and fades, and that's the force bringing them together. And in a way, to me, that's like, even though she died in a death rattle, like, it was kind of hammy, really, but I
yeah,
liked it because it was
yeah.
just
No,
like,
there's something very poetic about it that like she got
she
to
died with faith.
see. Yeah, she got to see like my son is okay. Like I did it right. Like I did this
Right.
part right. Like if I
She's
did
like,
nothing else right in my life, I did this right.
now you can really grow up and don't turn back. Don't turn back, Annie.
Yeah.
Don't turn back. I hated when she said that in the first one. I was like, turn back, that's your mother, because I was a mama's boy. But then I understood, like, no, no, go from here, go, be free, eagle leave the nest, sort of thing. And
Right. I
that's
mean,
selfless, because that's
I
she's
mean
swallowing a lot of
that's
pain.
that's what moms do. Like you raise your children to be good functioning people. Like to be not good functioning, but like good people, like functioning members of society, like to be their own person. That's like the goal. Like you don't raise your kids to live with you forever. You
Right.
raise them so they can go off and be their own
You
person.
teach them how to fish. It's like you're the master of your own household. This is how you do it. This is what you do. Be safe. Be good. If you do bad things, you might get shot. I don't want my son shot. But unfortunately, I don't want you cutting down people with your lightsaber. She would have been heartbroken to know if that Vader was her. So I'm glad she didn't live to see that. But in the end, I think maybe she became a Force ghost. Who knows? Maybe
She's force
there
ghosting
was
out there somewhere.
maybe her midichlorian count was a reason Palpatine and Plagueis chose her, because maybe she was force sensitive. Maybe there's a way. I don't want to speculate too much. It's not in the canon or legends, but ultimately, I think her arc was full circle, and it didn't need to go much beyond what it was. I think it was succinct and perfect the way it was created. So that's why I can't hate on Lucas. I'm sorry. Like, he creates good stories. So
Of course he does. That's why he has a whole museum coming to him. Look forward to going to that museum.
I just want him in Jar Jar's redemption so bad, but
Well, just you wait now. Speaking of, but yeah, no, I don't know. Any final thoughts on Shmi before we wrap this on up?
I think I said it all, and you said it all too. She's just underrated character, but part of the gang, part of the crew. She I wish she got to enjoy some blue milk with everyone and party at the end of Return of the Jedi. But in a way, Anakin's Force Ghost made it. He's there partying. So the Skywalker legacy, which is her, she's the matriarch, it does live on via the real Anakin, via the real Luke, and any descendants thereafter, depending which universe it is. But she created a dynasty and freed the universe, because the Sith were lurking for thousands of years. She, through good motherhood, through good family values, and a moral backbone, she taught her son, in the end, to do what is right, to help people in this universe. That's the biggest problem. And he did in the end. He killed the Sith. So thanks to her, she's a Sith Slayer. That's where I'll end it. You know.
There you go. I think she's a beautiful representation of a nuanced Star Wars character, of course, more lingering there under the surface than first meets the eye. She is a mother. She endures the pain of a mother, the sacrifice of a mother, the power and dignity of a mother. And I think she is a perfect way for us to celebrate this Mother's Day season.
And
And
happy first
I,
Mother's Day to you. Yeah.
well, thank you, thank you. I hope I got a little Shmi in me, and that I do a decent job raising my kid.
You'll do more than decent.
Right? Somebody's got to be, I don't know, the next chancellor.
Or emperor. You never know. You are Sith,
You
right? So
never, you never know.
you
It's
never know.
2026. Women can be emperor.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, no. What is the spiel? Of course, for everything Mind the Force, please check us out on mindtheforce.com. Hit us up on socials, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Substack. Um, Shoot us an email at mindtheforcepodcast@gmail.com. Like, share, subscribe, hit us with the 5 stars so the internet, that's 10, so the internet knows that we're cool. Um, and until next time, this has been another lovely episode of Mind the Force.
Stay mindful.
Stay mindful.